Okay, dear colleagues, great to see you in such great numbers in our Nordic Council of Ministers organized discussion on if the Nordic-Baltic countries, if we are safer together. Well, kind of easy answer, but the question is how much safer we are together. And we have a truly a wonderful panel today. We have an hour for discussion, so I hope that very quickly we're going to have a few rounds of questions in between ourselves. And then please, at any point, if you want to raise a question, just hands up. Nameplates, no, but names announced, and please do ask your question. This is a discussion. Let's start with Kristina Hafos, the Secretary General of Norden, and you might be the most exotic former minister, which I have ever moderated, to be honest. Former Minister of Finance of Faroe Islands. Keeping in the same direction of Faroe Islands, a former. Just a second. I know. Mind geography, exactly. Yes. Former ambassador to Denmark, hence the Faroe Islands, to Estonia, to Sweden. Jens Jägerman is a retired. And some other places as well. Yeah, it was like A4 pages. I can't read them all. We have only an hour. Gins, come on. And to my left, of course, we go with the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Latvia. Also has been a Vice Minister or Parliamentary Secretary, as we call them, and I continuously repeat that we need to rename for the publicity purposes, but also has been the Vice Minister of Healthcare and Vice Minister of Welfare, and now the Foreign Affairs. If I would know that you have studied foreign affairs and international relations before, I would ask that this is an interesting leap from one sector to another. And Charlotte Finn Petersen, the director of the Danish Foreign Policy Society and a journalist. It's always happy to work with you and on so many projects together before. So in this case, I am very much eager to. You moderated me 2 months ago. Now we are in a changed role. So, colleagues, the first question that I wanted to ask: has the Baltic Sea region changed since 2022? Has it changed irreversibly? Is there something that in this case you would say that the world will never be, the Baltic Sea region will never be as it was, and we will never go back to what was previously was. Artyoms, I will allow myself to start with you.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, the easy answer is yes. We have seen after the start of the full-scale Russia's aggression against Ukraine, we have seen significant changes in the region. And of course, the main one is that Finland and Sweden now are parts of NATO. We would never imagine that, actually, maybe 5 years ago, that it will happen. But this is a new reality now. And some might joke that there is no Baltic Sea anymore, it's NATO lake. Well, it is almost true. We still have a quite significant part of it controlled by Russia fleet. But, of course, the security situation in the region has changed dramatically. And this brings us also new opportunities because, well, coordination, enhanced cooperation is on totally different level between Scandinavian countries and Baltic countries. Well, when somebody joins NATO, it's probably irreversible. And we are, of course, extremely happy having a huge and very warfare-ready Finnish army joining our common forces. We are having more and more opportunities to cooperate in military, to train together, and to shift our regional security in a more modern way. As we were probably lacking this modern approach for the last decades, we believed that there is a umbrella of our transatlantic partners who would support us. They still support us, but who would, help us in any occasion and help us to destroy any enemy. Now there is another shift towards us doing more on our own and towards us being ready, being more resilient, and being more active on that.
Thank you. We're going to still return to our partners and who are our partners. Christina, what is your take?
Things have definitely changed. I think in some way we all woke up in the Nordic countries. I think the Baltics and the Finns, they have been awake the whole time, but before the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine, many of the Nordic countries were like hoping for peace in our time and that it would continue. I'll never forget the day when the full-scale invasion actually happened. And even though we had so many warning signs, it even was on the TV for a long time, it was like, no, it will not happen. But it did happen. But what has happened after that has also been amazing to see how fast we have adapted, how fast the Nordic countries, the Baltic countries, and also allies have come together and have become stronger. As mentioned, no one would have believed that Sweden and Finland would be members of NATO just a few years ago, and that it could happen so fast. And also on so many other levels, there are like strengthening cooperation, both when it comes to the armies and so on. And I think even though the Nordic countries and the Baltic countries are not like directly in war, we were seeing some tanks up here, but we're not seeing tanks from enemies. We are under attack constantly. We were actually also before 2022, digital hybrid attacks and so on. But now we see it so clearly with these all physical attacks on critical infrastructure in the Baltic Sea, for example. So things have definitely changed, but we have adapted fast. We have strengthened the Nordic, Baltic, and European cooperation. And I guess we'll get back to what we can do even better in a while.
Sure. Thank you so much. And I love that you started with we woke up in the Nordics. I'm always thinking that the Baltic states have been trying to build their image and introduce so many things from the Nordic countries that at one point, will we be eligible to call ourselves Nordics as well or not? Charlotte, I turn to you with the same question. Have the changes been irreversible?
Yes, I think so, and both in a sort of a negative sense and in a positive sense. In the positive sense, I think that we now understand the reason why we are the Nordic-Baltic region in a much stronger sense of the word. I know I worked with the Baltic Development Forum. I worked with former ambassador to Latvia, Per Carlsen, and he was and Uffe Ellemann-Jensen, also the former foreign minister of Denmark, and they were always very concerned about, are we focusing enough on the Baltic, the Baltic cooperation around the sea? And I think today we understand that there's we cannot reverse that. We have to work around the sea to counter, all kind of threats, hybrid threats and kinetic threats. So this is irreversible in the positive sense, that we actually are coming together in a new way that we didn't. In the negative sense, I think it's irreversible because of the relationship to Russia. We now understand we have a border that is sort of a border to Russia, both in Finland, and in which there are no border crossings. There's no connections at all. It's a sort of a border in which the Finns, for example, they get all their 95% of their goods they get through the Baltic Straits, the Danish Straits, the Great Belt. So in that sense, it's irreversible also in the terms of infrastructure and how we are organizing ourselves. And we will see that also in the future, that we will organize ourselves in terms of infrastructure away from Russia, and this will be irreversible.
So now it's not only the Baltic states who have been trying to run away from Russia in 35 years as far as possible, it's also the Nordics on the same path. Gent, any other irreversible changes that you didn't hear colleagues saying?
I'm still struggling with the word irreversible. I mean, if you study history, somehow it's a good try, good attempt.
Depends on which history you're studying, actually.
I mean, you're trying to direct this conversation into something.
I just asked a question. I didn't try anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, very many positive developments already acknowledged by co-panelists, but lots to be done. I think we are at the very beginning of probably irreversible changes in our region. On the one hand, we have a big neighbor, and that's going to stay. And this neighbor is going to be hostile and angry for many decades to come. It took our Nordic partners some time to wake up. Now the question is, can we stay awake for the foreseeable future? And we will need a lot of strength and investment, not only in defense, but in regional infrastructure. And there is something, probably one word I would like to mention. We are under attack. Our democracy is under attack. And we have learned democracy for the past 35 or so odd years. In fact, this year we will celebrate, mark the 35th anniversary of the Nordic-Baltic cooperation. Can I quiz you? Anybody on this panel, do you know when the first NBA meeting took place?
You know it.
It did.
You're on the panel.
It did take place on the 20th of December in 1990. Uffe Ellemann-Jensen already mentioned. He invited Nordic-Baltic foreign ministers, and 3 of them were still under the Soviet occupation. So that was the first meeting, which I'm trying to say. The history is long, our experiences are diverse. Now there is an option to build something together, but we can go into details later.
Okay, Gins, don't put the microphone down. I'm going to go in the reversed order and ask you about the details. So who are now the partners for the Nordic-Baltic countries? So in this case, again, we have heard that we are distancing ourselves from some parts, but again, taking into account that, the U.S. administration, that there are differences in political opinions and approaches, also regarding the security in NATO. So in this case, whom would you call are the most important partners for the Nordic-Baltic countries, and why?
For the time being, these are 8 partners, 3 Baltic countries and 5 Nordic countries. We have seen in the past few months, several months, that there are new formats emerging, E3, Germany, Great Britain and France, and then there were some 5 big European countries together with the European Commission, which means that there are these new formats emerging, which indicates that the old structures that we used to know, they are kind of not reliable because of some partners that we cannot trust really, like Hungary or Slovakia, probably Austria, some other countries, which means this is a new game in town. The good question is, can we trust the United States? And I can give you a long lecture about why shouldn't we do it. But because of
You, I think, made everyone curious. Could you tell us in 2 points why we should not trust the U.S. now?
Because of these dramatic changes that we see in the United States and the attacks against European democracy, which have been already on display, I don't think we can really trust the Americans anymore. And the Trump administration is going to crush American democratic system for next 4 years probably, which means that we need to find reliable partners. And this group, 8 countries, can gradually build new partnerships. On the one hand, it might be Poland, because Poland is a necessary player in the regional security context. We need Germany, but it's a big ship and it's very difficult to... We are small boats, and this is a really big ship. We need the United Kingdom on board, of course, some other partners. But again, I can go into details later on.
You will, no worries. Charlotte, the same question. Who are the partners? We already heard that there is one partner which we can't necessarily trust at this moment. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think there are a number of partners. First of all, I think the EU is really a partner, which is something we're part of as well as a partner. And they're doing quite a lot of things that we sometimes tend to underestimate, even though there are within the EU possibility, member states that are not that positive. But, at the moment, in terms of what's going on in the Baltic Sea on the shadow fleet, for example, there is a policy that they're putting in place in order to detect and monitor what is actually taking place. And then there is also the UK, I think, again, is important. Now we see within the NATO cooperation, there is the Nordic countries and UK are part of the Northern cooperation within that. And this leaves sort of the Baltic countries apart from that, but at the same time there are efforts to put the Nordic and the Baltic together within the NATO. So it's a sort of a discussion at the moment, what is actually going on. Are the Nordic countries not with the Baltic countries within NATO, but because of this division, where's the control center for the Northern? But at the same time, I think there's a lot of things going on that is trying to counter this. So you could say there's the NATO, there's the EU, and then I guess there's the UK because of the nuclear umbrella. Somehow, if you don't have the American nuclear umbrella, you have the UK and the French nuclear umbrella. I think from the example of our Prime Minister. She just went to Greenland with Macron to sort of state that this is also something that there's respect for the sovereignty of the people of Greenland. And I think, you have to work with every EU member states. I think that's the advice, that there's huge diplomatic efforts all the time to meet and to discuss and to do. And I think this is actually the main thing. And of course, then there's the 3 countries or 2 countries within the EU that don't want to be as close, but that has to be overcome. And I think in that sense, there's of course the neighbor countries, but generally I'd say NATO and EU are still very reliable in terms of supporting everything that we do within the Baltic Sea.
Okay, thank you, Christina. So we have the whole European Union but let us know which are the most immediate partners for the Nordic Baltics, if I may slightly rephrase it.
I totally agree on what has been said here. I think the Nordic and Baltic countries, they need a lot of friends. As was mentioned here, our core values are under attack. Democracy, rule of law, and often we just take these things for granted. I just have to mention I went to this conference of presidents of parliament together with the Nordic Council president about a month ago or two in Strasbourg. And it is alarming that we are not only facing threats from abroad, but also from within. There have been put questions to young people in several of the European countries, and in some countries between 30 and 40% of the young people say they would rather like one strong leader in their country than parliament and all this fuss. One strong leader. Between 30 and 40% of young people in some of our European countries are saying that. And at the same time, if we look globally, less than 10% of the people are living in countries who we call full democracy. So I think both the Nordic, Baltics, we need to cooperate with all the countries who have like the same wish to work for democracy and the values that we work for. And the EU is, of course, one of those. Unfortunately, we see countries in the EU who are, it looks like, wanting to go maybe another way. So we have a task there also to reach out to those people in those countries who want the same value-based countries and societies that we have in the Nordics and Baltics. So we need friends in the EU, but I think also across the Atlantic, Canada is one important partner for the Nordic countries also. We are experiencing that Canadians are very eager to connect closer to the Nordic countries. I went to visit the Canadian Parliament last year, and they have both groups with parliamentarians focusing on the Nordics, probably also the Baltics, and the Nordic Council is also trying to invite them to the sessions together with Nordic parliamentarians. And I know on governmental level there is a very strong will also to connect, in addition to the US also, where we have some concerns of the development now, but of course we want to have a close cooperation with the US also. So I think it's hard just to say one country, because all the majority of the European countries hopefully could be close cooperation partners on top of US, Canada. And I think also we have to look globally when it comes to this threat against our democracy. So also on the other side of the globe, we need to find alliances. If we want to ensure that democracy is also a fact, both in the Nordics, Baltics, and in the world, if we look further ahead.
Thank you. Not to put you in the spotlight, but the US has been discussed the most. So a quick question to narrow it down, and the original question. Can we trust the United States? Is United States what is our position on the United States at the moment?
United States is still a reliable partner to Latvia and to NATO. It has been our strategic partner for many, many years. It is our strategic partner, and it will be our strategic partner. That doesn't mean that our reliable partners can't change some of their views. And we actually know what our partners want. But that really doesn't mean that we can't rely on them anymore. That means that we need to adapt to the new situation. And those changes are not always negative, I should say. If you look in a broader perspective, I should say that I believe it's impossible to single out one or two countries one or two allies that are indispensable, because it is the unity what makes us strong. And this is the core of NATO, it's the core of our security, that everyone united, and we are coming out with one strong position. Actually, I truly believe that if we will go to some sort of fragmentation or regionalization, it will make our alliance weak. And this is exactly what our enemy would want us to do. To make us trust less in our partners, to make us regionalize more and make some smaller alliances. That doesn't matter, that doesn't mean that regional groups can't exist, but regional groups can exist, and it is very positive when they exist to make some issues, more vocal, or to make our voices more heard. Great example of some sort of smaller cooperation with the NATO is, for example, drone coalition, where countries unite to tackle one particular issue. But no regionalization should be done, this is my true belief, because that will just make our situation much worse than it is now. NATO is actually, well, let's see what happens in the Hague summit next week. But my feeling is that NATO is actually stronger than ever, not only because we have some additional countries, but also because of the changes in the world and because of some political changes. We are having a list of countries who already expand their defense capabilities, who already invest more, who are ready to scale up their capabilities, who are ready to invest more in military capacity within Europe, which is very important to us. We can't only buy somewhere, we need to produce more here. And these are all these positive trends we are seeing right now, actually. So no fragmentation, no regionalization, and none of the partners isn't trustful.
Good. You kind of calmed me down, but then there was... Thank you.
This is my job.
Thank you. Colleagues, I have one more round of questions to panelists, but if you already have some questions, remarks, interventions prepared, you can start raising your hands. If no, then let's do one more. Yes, there is a question, please. Just wait a second. As we are being live, then we're going to have a colleague. Yeah, there's a colleague coming with a microphone.
Test. Okay.
Test is coming with a microphone. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, just while we're still on the topic of the United States, I just wanted to ask, can there really be any meaningful partnership with the U.S. on security and defense after, as we know, they have never prioritized European security on its own. They always have wanted us to depend on them, so for economic interests. So we would buy weapons and other equipment from them with the 3Ds in 1998, for example. So how can we really know if we can have a meaningful partnership with the U.S. where they really prioritize the European security and not just their economic interests, given the history?
Please, Christina.
Yeah, I think
you for the
definitely it is possible to have a meaningful relationship with the U.S. and I also believe that the Nordics and Baltics want that also in the future. But I think all of this has also made both the Nordic, Baltics, the European countries realize that we have to be stronger here in Europe. We have a saying in the Faroe Islands, "Ontje så rikt at det ikke er godt for okkurt." Nothing is so bad that it isn't good for something. And what's happening now, both on so many levels, is that we are seeing a much, much stronger Nordic cooperation. We are seeing a much stronger Nordic-Baltic cooperation. And we are seeing European countries scaling up, cooperating stronger. So to ensure that we are also able to take care of our, of our own problems in Europe in the future. So yes, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Yes, I think we can maybe not trust it in the same, but we can actually cooperate from a position of strength rather than from a position of weakness. And that will create a much more equal partnership. So in the future, I hope that what we will do is actually be more equal partners in our relationship to the U.S. And this is actually, if you heard the speech of Zelensky at the Munich Security Conference, this is actually what he said. I would recommend everybody to listen to this speech on YouTube, because I think it was really saying we have to work from a position of strength, which means that we actually become equal partners and show that we can actually take care of ourselves on the one hand, but we will not, we'll keep on cooperating with the U.S. as much as we can, and we can cooperate also with other parts of the U.S. than just the central government. We can partner up with California or Massachusetts or whatever. So it's a big country.
Thank you. Artems, would you like to pick up?
Yeah, allow me to slightly disagree on your take about the history of our relationship, security relationship with the United States. I believe that it has never been a one-way road. In fact, there is a huge list of quite unique military equipment which can be produced on the United States. And why does that happen? That happened because historically for decades and decades, this was the country who invested much more than any other in their military capabilities, in their military research, and they have a know-how. And of course, there are some very essential things, especially in air defense, for example, which is the best in the United States, and it's totally normal for our other partners in Europe that we are buying them. And also, when it comes to any production, it is never without the element of economy underneath it. Our friends in Finland, for example, they produce Patrias, but of course they don't produce them only because they are nice to others. They want to defend themselves, and they also want to, have some profit when they sell it. That's totally normal. Meaningful path is possible, and I believe it is meaningful right now. A week ago, I had a fantastic meeting with U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Mr. Whitaker, and it has been one of the best meetings I ever had during my time in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We were able to find a common ground on everything what was in Latvia's interest. So, well, I should say that there are a lot of emotions around, and there are a lot of emotions when we read X Twitter or any other social media. Some comments might be very emotional, but we need to calm down and look at the reality and look at the real actions. And real actions are showing us that the way forward is much more bright than someone would like to think and some guys in Moscow would want to believe.
Thank you. Gent, you were the most skeptical about the cooperation.
I'm probably the most realistic. Anyway, I don't want to take hostage this panel, but I need to say...
I will not allow you to.
But I need to say a few things. First of all, in order to be interesting for the Americans, we need to build our own capabilities, and in this regard, we are on a good path. The increase on military spending is an indication that we are planning to do it. I'm saying we're planning to do it because we have these percents on the paper, but when it comes to the reality, we will still need to work it out. What is different? I will disagree with my colleague on the panel. Americans were building something unique after World War II. They were, for the first time, investing in foreign territories in order to strengthen their own security. And in doing that, they were building this coalition of democratic nations. It turns out, after 80 years of building this coalition, it's still a very small coalition if you look on a global map. And it's probably shrinking. It's shrinking in terms of numbers, that's for sure. Our birth rates, anyway. But now Americans are, at least the current administration, and I'm not sure it's just the current administration, they are meticulously trying to undermine the project they started 80 years ago. Therefore, our relationship, we need to have a dialogue with them, but we need to look after ourselves. Americans are, this is a completely new ball game.
Thank you. So you got the answer to your question. Good. Colleagues, one more round from my side and then more questions from your side. Just very quickly on Russia. It's interesting that the word Russia was mentioned 3 times on this panel and 2 times just now by me. So the question is, what have we learned, again, in history, in the modern history, from Russia's presence in the Baltic Sea and also in the Black Sea, so if there are some similarities. So as the Baltic Sea is all of our internal lake, I understand, some further away, some closer, but nevertheless. Artyms.
Well, there are definitely some things to learn. I think it's wrong to assume that Russia's actions in Baltic Sea and Russia's actions in Black Sea aren't linked together. I believe they are. And what they are doing in the Baltic Sea is modern hybrid warfare. And I'm not sure, to be fair, that we are prepared well enough for that. We have seen several hybrid activities in the last months, and this is one of our main homeworks in the sea, to actually find the ways how we can counter them better than we are countering them now. We are reacting right now, but we need to do more than just reacting. And our main task, I believe, is to make sure that we don't come to a situation which is close to what we see in the Black Sea. Russia is much more aggressive there. They are mining the sea. They are deeply militarizing Crimea. They are blockading ports. Of course, our situation is much better from that perspective. We do have all allies except Russia within the sea. But these are all these actions are what we definitely need to learn from and find the ways how we counter-react before Russia would start doing some similar things.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Yes, I think it's very important what Artyms is saying, because at the moment there is a lot of hybrid warfare taking place in the Baltic Sea. There is an area very close to Finland and between Finland and Estonia, and where there's actually where if the boats go in this area, you cannot detect them. So it's a sort of a black hole in where you cannot detect, and the whole shadow fleet is very dangerous, especially for us. Like, I can see the shadow fleet sailing through the Danish straits from my summer house, and you can see 10 of these ships every day on the ship track, and you can see them going through. And it's just the idea of the oil that can spill out and how it can destroy actually the environment is really scary, I think, at the moment. And, they can just say, oh, wow, it was an accident, and they're not insured. So what's actually taking place? What can we do about it? And there are some things that we can do. We can do like we're doing with NATO, surveilling the ships when they go around, when they break the cables. There is the Cable Convention from something 1884, actually, a very old convention that not all members of the Nordic countries and the Baltic countries have signed, but can be used to criminalize those who break the cables. And then there are, you could say, what I think we will be starting to do in Denmark at the moment, where we'll actually use the Danish Agency for Marine Surveillance to go in and inspect the ships to say, do you have your insurance in order? Are you actually protecting the environment? And using the environment as a pretext actually to say, this is not in order, this is not the way it should be. But we have been slow in Denmark to do this. But I think our foreign minister signaled that we will actually start doing this at the moment, with the support from the EU actually on these issues.
Charlotte, thank you so much. It's just a quick follow-up. Did I really understand you correctly that from your summer house you have seen the whole Russian shadow fleet?
Yeah, I was totally, I was paranoid last summer. It's an island in the middle of the Great Belt. It's called the Big Belt. And then I could see, one ship after the other sailing through this big belt. And then when you look on our app, I have an app called Ship Tracker. And then I looked and I could see it was called, came from Ust-Luga. And then it said maybe Panama flag, Djibouti flag, and then there was the Russian flag also, just showing that it was Russian oil. So you could actually see, and then would go to India and these things. So I was quite sure that these were shadow fleets going through the, my summer house.
Okay.
If I can just add a little bit on the shadow fleet, I truly believe that sanctioning shadow fleet is our main and core task in the upcoming sanction lists. Next week, the European Union is adopting the new sanction package. We will add more than 100 ships to sanction list, and what is also important, we are adding also individuals who are working with them. We are adding the companies who are working with these with the shadow fleet, and we just need to get more and more pressure. By the way, out of this 100 ships, Latvia added 10. We did our part in that investigation part and preparing all the judicial documents, and we are adding quite a lot every round. But I believe that this should be our main focus in the next sanction rounds, definitely. And all our countries should be very vocal on that, because this is one thing what could harm ecologically, financially, and militarily our sea.
Thank you. Gint. No, Gint, I like surprising you today. So what have we learned, or what can we learn?
Geography.
Good. What else? He's either answering in very long sentences or in one word. Okay?
If you look on the map, Russia on the European continent has 3 exit points on the water. It's the Baltic Sea, it's the Black Sea, and it's the Arctic Ocean. Arctic Ocean is becoming very important, and since Finland and Sweden joined NATO, I think the Arctic region and the Baltic Sea should be looked as a one theater. The Baltic countries, I'm sad to say, we are still lacking this perspective or curiosity, but I think we need to expand to that. Russians need these exit points. So there is going to be a constant tension in the Baltic Sea and in all these waters that I mentioned. The thing is, everything that has been done so far, strengthening our cooperation in dealing with cable cutting and shadow fleet and so on, these are very good steps. But the Russians are adapting too. They are now sending aircrafts and warships to sort of guide these shadow ships through these waters. So they are increasing the pressure on us, and I don't think we have been able to figure out how to respond to it yet.
Yet, exactly. Christina, please, what have we learned?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what they have said before, so I won't say it again. But maybe I can add that on top of what we've learned of all these physical things like shadow fleet, cutting off cables and reacting to that, I think the long-term concern is everything that's happening on all these digital platforms. We haven't talked about China, for example, now, but
this is a panel on Nordic-Baltic.
I know, but Russia has been mentioned as a threat, and on long-term threat. If you think about our youth, and we we see extremism in so many forms, populism. We see these echo chambers in this digital world, and so on. How do we also tackle that together? You can't do that as one country. The Nordic-Baltic European countries, all the allies who want, again, these strong democracies in the future. I think that is also something that we have learned. We have seen a lot of things, what's going on the digital platforms, but we haven't handled it quite yet. On top of that, AI and all the both possibilities but also threats, and I'm very happy that the Nordic and Baltic governments now have come together to establish a Nordic-Baltic AI center, so we can get all the best brains, hopefully, and people together in the Nordic and Baltic countries to see, okay, how can we get ahead and do something good together on this platform also. So I think, yes, we have learned a lot on military and so on what to do, but we have still a long way to come, also the long term and all that is going on in the digital and AI and so on. So a lot of work ahead also, but I think as long as we stick together with our friends, and I think we have a lot of friends in the Nordics, Baltics and European countries, and also on the other side of the Atlantic and on the other side of the globe, we stay extremely strong. But we shouldn't take any of this for granted, and we should be aware of all the threats that are and work hard together.
Thank you. Russia is like climate change. No country in the world can handle it alone, right? Colleagues, questions, please. In the first row, please, here, the microphone. Please state your first name and your question.
Yes, hello, I'm Anne Saloranta, Finland's ambassador to Latvia. Thank you for the thought-provoking and very interesting, very timely and insightful discussion. You have mentioned Finland several times in a very positive light, so of course that makes us happy, and as you know, we are determined and of course very much sort of down to earth, member of the Nordic-Baltic group, and of course very much also happy to be a member of NATO in these challenging circumstances. And as we all know, our membership actually, the urge for it came from us, the population. It was the politicians, naturally, who then sealed the deal. And of course, the current NATO members, then, or the ones who were members at the time, of course, accepted us. But again, this was something that the population very much wanted. My question now is, you are talking about partnerships, and of course, besides the obvious partnerships, we also need to look into the global south. And to build partners with those countries that are there. So, of course, as it happens, we have Latvia and Denmark in the panel today. And, of course, as of the 1st of January next year, you will be very close partners as non-permanent members in the UN Security Council. So again, I would like to hear from you how you see this discussion now. We are talking about values and how our values, our Nordic-Baltic values are being under attack. So what is your take on building a partnership, building partnerships and building bridges with the global south, especially as non-permanent members in the UN Security Council, knowing that the majority of the world's countries actually are in the global south? So would be happy to hear from you. Thanks.
Thank you, Ambassador. Looking at the watch, we have 12 minutes. So I would, if you don't mind, I would like to take more questions if there are. Yeah, please. There is one. Your name.
Hello, I have a small question. The European Union gives the sanctions, to Russia, but how I see in the Russian propaganda channels, they are like talking about the sanctions like nothing. When the European Union give the real sanctions, like I know this is sanctions, but when we can give bigger sanctions, like
mega sanction.
Switch off electricity, I don't know. Switch something like, because we are playing games like, oh, we give a little bit and then, oh, look at that. But it's not for the big country, it's nothing, I think. Yeah, that's my question.
Thank you. There's one more question over there, please.
Yes, hello, I'm Kai, I'm also from Finland. I just want to ask one question, which is about, bothers me quite a lot, is that in this Nordic-Baltic cooperation and relationships, I think there is still this hierarchy that the five of us, the Nordic countries, we are kind of a little bit, better. and sometimes looking down still to the Baltic countries. I really I don't like it, but I know I'm from this camp that tends to look a little bit downwards. Like, what should we do about that? Because I think, it should be something that we should leave to the past, but I think there's things that we still need to do about it.
Perfect question. Thank you so much. If no more questions, then we have one question which is on cooperation with Global South. One question is on cutting off electricity to Russia. And one more is, yes, when will the Nordic countries allow the Baltic countries to call themselves Nordic countries? Charlotte, please.
I'll start with the question from the ambassador. I think that, under the coming Danish EU presidency, the whole issue on the Global South will be very high on the agenda, and actually supporting the EU in making a better partnership approach to specifically Africa, and seeing that Africa will also have a role in the Security Council in the future, so that we actually get a better way of having that. On the other hand, we know that reforms of the Security Council will be really, really difficult. But one of the ways that the Danish presidency will go into reaching out to the Global South is actually through, you could say, the EU development cooperation, and how we actually create a better partnership on this. So that is one of the ways. In the Security Council itself, that's very complicated at the moment, but I think we have to adopt an approach in which we use much more it was actually Luxembourg who suggested this, that we actually use an approach then where if anybody makes a veto in the Security Council, it has to go back to the General Assembly of the UN and see what the General Assembly members says to that, and then it goes back to the Security Council. And this way, the veto in itself, it's much more difficult, or not difficult, but you can sort of expose to the world that the veto is not in accordance with what the totality of the UN members think. And it's, of course, doesn't solve the problem of the veto itself in the UN, the 5 permanent members that can veto things, and that is why the Security Council at the moment is not working at its best. But one of the ways to expose that is actually to take it to the General Assembly when there is a veto, and see what the General Assembly members think of it. And this is what's going to be. That is what the Danish and I think that we are trying to put in place as a procedure. And then there is also all the small you could say victories of the Security Council. For example, the prolongation of the Congo UN peacekeeping force. So there's a lot of small victories that is with Africa, and this is what we need to focus on.
Thank you, Charles. Gins, pick and choose. Pick a choose.
1 minute, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll pick the last question. First of all, 8 different countries, different histories, different identities. If you talk to, you come from Finland, but if you talk to Swedes and Norwegians, they have their own histories, Danes and Swedes and so on. So lots of histories among these nations. One thing, 2 things. First, because of the Russian invasion, I think the Baltic states for the first time gained some sort of credibility within NATO and the European community. And I dare to say, because of our push and persistence, our Nordic friends became more like the Baltic countries in this regard. This is a somewhat unique development. And the other thing is, in order to be on the same footing, and I'm not saying that, I have felt always being ambassador to Sweden or Denmark, the big brother and not so big brother feeling. But we need to invest into the Baltic cooperation. If we put money into this cooperation, the Nordic friends will start to appreciate us.
Thank you. Good advice. More money, please.
So first of all, on the first question about the Global South, I totally agree with what Charlotte said, but I wanted to add another dimension, which is trade and trade agreements. I truly believe that this is the most effective way, actually, how we can build trust. And I'm participating in the trade ministers' discussions like every month, and I think that Trade Commissioner Šefčovič will start avoiding me because every meeting I'm actively pushing him, go out, speak with Mercosur, speak with India, speak with Australia, others. So this is definitely the way for European Union to actually diversify and to make us feel a little bit more secure, since what's happening in the global trade is now where we are very cautious about that. As for the last question, very shortly, I never felt that way, that we are somewhat lower than Scandinavian countries. In fact, I truly believe that we were never as equal as we are now. And this is a great success of what we have done together in NB8. And as about the gentleman in the pink, not pink, sorry, purple hat said, sanctions are working very slowly, but actually quite effectively. What we see that Russia is struggling more and more in how they build up their annual budget. They have lost the majority of their financial reserves during the last 3 years. And this is largely actually because of sanctions. It's not an easy task, of course, to go out with those extremely huge steps in this, but I should say that my belief is what we've done so far has been particularly good, but we have seen the real results in the upcoming years.
Thank you. And last but not least, Kristina.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for all three questions. Due to lack of time, I will answer the last question.
You have 3 minutes, for each question.
Thank you. The Nordic-Baltic cooperation, my experience is that it is on an equal level, and that the Nordic parliamentarians, I could maybe mention that the Nordic Council is this parliamentarian cooperation between the 8 Nordic parliaments. Each parliament elects parliamentarians into the Nordic Council, so it's all in all 87 parliamentarians meeting 5 times a year on shift in the Nordic parliaments. And we have a very close cooperation also with the Baltic Assembly, which is similar. The 3 Baltic parliaments meeting several times a year. And they are always invited to the Nordic Council meetings, and the Nordic Council Presidium is also invited to the Baltic Assembly meetings. So we have a very strong parliamentarian cooperation on that level. And the governments, we also see ministers meeting regularly, and also the prime ministers in the Baltic and Nordic. So I really think there is a strong will, both by the parliamentarians and also the governments in the Nordics, to have a strong and equal cooperation. It's a win-win for all parties. And and I can just say the Baltics are amazing. One small experience from when I was a finance minister in the Faroe Islands from 2015 to 2019, I was also Minister of Digitalization. And we wanted to invest in a new digital infrastructure in the Faroe Islands. And we went to Estonia to get inspiration. And afterwards, we used that inspiration to implement an X-road, which is the same that you have in the Baltics here, and Finland also has implemented, and also the digital e-ID and so on. That's just on one level that you are an inspiration for the Nordic countries in the Baltic countries here. And we could continue for a long time, but yeah, looking forward to strengthening the cooperation between the Baltics and the Nordics even more in the future.
Thank you so much. I made a promise at the beginning of this session that I will end it on time. So please, we have about 1 minute for a big round of applause to the wonderful panelists of today. Thank you so much.